Well, Razorback fans, John Calipari is saying all the right things and he's doing the right things. But Kentucky fans just kind of laugh at it and say, yeah, we've been hearing that for 15 years. Good luck with that. Well, I'd take the last 15 years for Kentucky, wouldn't you?
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of the John Nabors Show, which you can catch every weekday afternoon starting at 4 p.m. on Natty State Sports and nattystatesports.com. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend, as there was not a whole lot that went down in the Razorback landscape. And, that's not always necessarily a bad thing when it comes to, some of the luck that Arkansas has had during the offseason. It's like anytime it's the slow time and you don't have anything going on as far as major news, odds are it's a good sign. It is a good sign. So, yeah, it's going to be fun to not only get hyped up for football, but for basketball especially. And I'm sure we'll talk about more about the basketball side of things too. But, I had something that is so funny to me, and dealing with John Calipari, which, I'll say this. It's so crazy how anytime that I tweet something or just put something out there on social media, the amount of people from Kentucky and Big Blue Nation still respond. And that's fine. I mean, that's just the internet. That's social media. That's the Twitters. That's how it works. But John Calipari put out a really normal tweet, just kind of putting it out there to try to get everybody hyped up and excited. And he said, quote, "Had our first team meeting yesterday, and I did individual meetings today. Guys played pickup last night. I am really excited about this group. They are talented, big, experienced, and physically and mentally tough. We are a national program that will recruit our region throughout the U.S. and around the world." I mean, there was literally nothing there. Nothing there that was controversial or crazy or anything like that. It was pretty generic. But I retweeted it, of course, because anytime you have John Calipari doing stuff or saying things, you got to retweet it. Well, then Kentucky fans, of course, came out of the woodwork, and they were even in the mentions and in the replies of John Calipari himself. And I'll just read a few of these because it's pretty much the same thing. A Kentucky fan in the reply says, "You say that about every team. Broken record. Good luck." It's like, okay. Somebody said that. Another guy said, "Love you, Cal, but thank God I don't have to buy into this anymore to get my hopes up anymore." Okay. And then the one that really made me laugh the hardest, because this is the one I saw first and then started to see that so many people agreed with him. As he says, "Kentucky fans have been hearing this for 15 years straight. LOL. Good luck." And I just find that so interesting that the past 15 years, they've been saying, yeah, Cal's been saying this forever. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, okay. Do you not? I don't think you understand what you're saying. Because in the last 15 years, Kentucky won a national championship, went to, is that 3 Final Fours? If I'm not mistaken, if I'm adding it right on the Wikipedia page, because that's, what you got to look at for the most part. And then, I have 4. We went to 4 Final Fours. Even better. And then you throw in the fact that you also went to a few Elite Eights, a few Sweet 16s, and then made the NCAA tournament each and every year except for 2. One of them was during the COVID season, when they were a really bad team, and the other one was in his fourth year after winning the national championship where they went to the NIT. Every other year, they went to the tournament. So that was 15 years of Calipari at Kentucky. So when Kentucky fans say, yeah, we've been hearing that for 15 years, good luck with that, I just shake my head and really, I don't think I wish it, but it really is so shocking to me how Kentucky fans overall just really don't understand how difficult it is to have a successful basketball program. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a blue blood or not. Indiana's a blue blood. And look, they still are trying to figure it out. They've had a few good years here and there, but they're still trying to get back to it. You know, you had Duke and North Carolina who have been powerhouses, but Carolina, you know, they had the days of, what was it, Pat Doherty? Is that his name? Before they got Roy Williams? Didn't work out. You know, and Duke hasn't done anything tremendous since Coach K's left. UCLA had some good years, but still trying to find their footing and everything. I'm only bringing this up is because sometimes people don't understand how difficult it is to sustain success. And at a program like Arkansas, I think every Razorback fan can relate to that because it was going under Eddie Sutton. It was going under Nolan Richardson. And you went into purgatory, a college basketball purgatory for, what was that, 15 years, roughly? No, it was closer to 20 years, actually, about 20 years. You went through that. You went through different coaches. You had some okay success, but you never captured the greatness. You never captured the excitement. You never captured the elite level like you thought you would and should. I think in that span, you only won 3-4 NCAA tournament games. So you just was in the wilderness there. But then you hired Muss, and then now you have Calipari. It's not about the program. It's about having the right coach. And when you hear the things like I've been hearing and seeing from Kentucky fans about like some of them act like the last 15 years were just trash, or at least the last 15 years that's why they wanted him fired, is because, well, national championship, 4 Final Fours, you know, I think it was like 7 Elite Eights, 6 or 7 Elite Eights. That ain't good enough anymore. It's like, okay, you've moved on. Well, I don't think you have, but you got Mark Pope and all that. But I'm just telling you, this is the same program that had Billy Clyde Gillespie, and it did not go well. There's a chance it could happen that way. There's a chance that Kentucky could end up in that purgatory once again. Don't ever take your success for granted. You know, there's people that are frustrated with Dave Van Horn, for instance, which we'll talk a little bit about baseball here in a second, and another sport too. Some good news, bad news. But I try to look at it as, yes, you still want to win a national title, a College World Series title. Yes, that's the thing that's missing. Yes, you feel like that's just the key ingredient to get to that point. You deserve it. But I don't think anybody seriously, hopefully didn't say this, but people who wanted Dave Van Horn gone or moving on from Dave Van Horn or think they need to change or whatever it is, be careful what you wish for. Because if you get it, it could go bad quickly, very quickly. And trying to dig yourself out of that hole that you find yourself in is a lot easier said than done. Could take years, could take decades. But the point is that when you're having the success, even if it's not getting consistently winning a national championship when you do, but if you're looking at Calipari's resume, the last 15 years, good luck with that. Thank you. Yeah, we'll take it. And then Kentucky fans countered and saying, "Oh, because, well, yeah, for Arkansas, that's good. But for Kentucky, we need a little bit more." Okay, be careful what you wish for. Because I think you're about to see exactly what it's like. You have lucked out on having a rock star coach in John Calipari for 15 years, and now you don't anymore. So good luck. It ain't as easy as you make it out to be. I will gladly take the last 15 years of Kentucky success in the 5 years for Arkansas. Like, if Cal, because if you average it out, if Cal makes it to one Final Four in the next 5 years, folks, say that's the furthest he goes, was one Final Four, would you take that? Forget what the other, just forget, you don't need to know anything else. Would you take one Final Four right now? Yep. I would too. Because that is how difficult it is to win. And especially in college basketball. It's hard, man. So yeah, give me the Cal success. I don't care if he's a broken record or not. I don't care if he said it all before or not. He's done it. He hasn't said it. He's done it. And actions always speak louder than words. We'll talk a little baseball as well as a little track, actually, here in just a segment. Folks, I got to tell you that summertime means baseball as well as the NBA Finals and so much more. And you can bet on it all at FanDuel, because right now new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200, and you can use anything that you can bet, from the NBA Finals MVP and who's going to hit one out of the park. All those things, you can do it with FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. It's a little title there of saying it's rubbing salt in the wound, which in a way it is. But a lot of you, kind of like myself, probably aren't watching much of the postseason for baseball anymore. I really don't care. But part of it is I do watch it. I watch the NBA Finals. And it's sports. You know, you pay attention to it and everything. Well, as of right now, at least, at the recording of this podcast, there have been now 4 SEC teams punch their ticket to the College World Series. You got Florida, because that's what they do. They're not great in the regular season, and then they do well, and they get to Omaha. You got Tennessee, you got Texas A&M, and you got Kentucky. And if Georgia wins today, they will be the 5th. Those are the teams from the SEC that are going to Omaha, or at least the potential going to Omaha. And man, that sucks, just to be honest about it. It sucks. You know, Kentucky's never made it to a World Series ever. They've only played in 2 super regionals, so this is pretty miraculous of a year for them. You know, Tennessee and A&M have been really good. But I think the most disappointing thing and the most frustrating thing about it is, like, the whole year, folks, the entire season for Razorback baseball, there were 4 teams that were just interchanging out of it as far as being the top 4 of the top 5 teams each and every week. It was either Tennessee or A&M or Kentucky or Arkansas. And 3 of those teams are making the World Series. Arkansas didn't even make it to the Supers. Didn't even make it to their regional final. It's truly disappointing. And I'm not trying to bring this up for just, bringing up old stuff just to throw it in there, but it does really blow that's what has to happen. I'm hoping that none of those teams win, because that's the thing, is some people say, oh, you do the SEC chant, you root for other SEC teams. And people honestly don't get that element, at least from me. I'm not saying that every Razorback fan roots for the SEC in some regards, but like, the only sport that I'll actually kind of root for the SEC in will be football. And that's really only if, as much as I hate LSU, I hate Ohio State more. So if it's LSU, Ohio State in a national championship, I'm rooting for LSU or Bama or Auburn. I'm rooting for those teams. Or if they play Michigan, kind of the same thing. Or if they play Texas, which I know Texas is in the SEC now, kind of the same thing. It's not every team. I don't always root for A&M, but that doesn't matter. Point is that the SEC, once again, is showing their dominance in baseball. And it's quite unfortunate that the three of the four teams at least, that were considered to be the best teams, not only in the SEC, but in the country, you were the one that fizzled like before you even got it going. Like you just were out. You were out of it. So it's disappointing, but I really hope none of those teams win. And I was trying to think of it, like, which would be worse? Because I'm talking about this on my show today. Like, which would be worse? To see A&M or Tennessee win it? Or you just throw any SEC team. Like, of all the SEC teams, which would be the worst feeling to see them win? Florida would be the least, because I actually like O'Sullivan and respect him, and he's won before. Wouldn't mind it. And then after that, you got kind of some new coaches. I mean, I think the one I definitely do not want to win would be Vitello in Tennessee, because that would be seeing like the student get a title before the teacher. That would be rough. And Wes Johnson, I mean, if they win today, but I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't mind him doing it because I actually like Wes Johnson. Kentucky's just, I don't know. They just came out of nowhere. So I guess I wouldn't mind them winning, but they would almost be like still sucky because a team that doesn't even care about baseball, like has turf on their field, would end up winning a title before Arkansas. So, and I think Tennessee would be the worst, then A&M, then Kentucky, then Georgia if they go, and then Florida. That would be my ranking. But I also wanted to give a shout out in some positive news, because there is some positive news. A shout out to track. Now, I know people are going to either roll their eyes or not care, but I'm telling you, we talked about success and how you never want to take it for granted. Well, I'd say that the Razorback women are doing their thing once again in the track side of things, and they secured a clean sweep of the NCAA championships during the 2024 indoor and outdoor seasons. And Chris Johnson it's his first year as head coach. Not too bad, as they were able to take care of business and actually beat out Florida. So you still can count on track. I know. But still, they deserve that. Like, I know sometimes we kind of laugh. I'm like, ooh, track. But still, though, that is a cool thing. Let's be honest about it. Like, the fact that Arkansas has won so many titles in track under different coaches, whether it's men or women's, is pretty impressive. And so anytime that they win a track national championship, it's like another day at the office. But then it's also funny, too, because if they don't win it, everyone's like, what happened? Who do we need to fire? It's like, how many track meets have you watched, my friend? So congratulations to them, though. I hope the SEC rots in College World Series. Before we get to the final segment, folks, I got to tell you, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right tools and has the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to a perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and don't have the time or resources to hire. And LinkedIn is also constantly finding ways to make the process so much easier. They even launched a new feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even quicker. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. This is going to be, I won't take too long on this, but I felt so stupid. Shows how sometimes how I get so busy with everything. My previous episode here on Locked On Razorbacks, I didn't even notice it until I was posting it, that it was my 1,000th episode of Locked On Razorbacks. 1,000 episodes. And when it popped up like that, that was really like jarring. I was like, oh my gosh. Like my first reaction was like, I've really done 1,000 episodes of this? But then it also kind of like hit me and took me back to when I started doing this. And, you know, the only reason I even got this opportunity, I don't know how many of you watching or listening remember this, but the only reason I got this opportunity was back when the SEC Country Arkansas podcast, I was able to host that. Mainly because Jason Kersey, who was working at SEC Country Arkansas too, hated doing it. And I lost my job at the radio station. So he's like, hey, why don't you just do this? And let's call it a deal. And I was like, great. Never done podcasting before. But when SEC Country went under, you know, I didn't have anything as far as podcasting go. But David Locke, who's the voice of the Utah Jazz, and he reached out to me on Twitter. I think it was back in 2017, 2018. And was like, hey, man, trying to, doing a podcast network. Would like to ask you if you'd be interested in doing the Arkansas Locked On podcast. So I was like, well, I hadn't done a podcast. And I was doing radio in Fort Smith at the time. So I was like, well, let's see. And I remember him talking to me about it and saying that he remembered me from SEC Country, Arkansas, and thought I did a really good job with it. And just wanted to give me that opportunity to try it because, they're still a really young company, really brand new company. And I remember talking to him about the contracts and talking about, and he gave me the setup of it, what it would be. And like the money situation. And I remember almost being kind of like shocked because we negotiated and it ended up working where I, got the vast majority of the revenue brought in by the podcast, which I love. It was awesome. And I was appreciative of that because it showed that they cared about the work you put in and the content you put in. So that's what sold me on it. And I started doing it. And I remember like the first few months, I didn't make much money on it at all. At all. Because it was brand new, trying to grow it, trying to utilize it, trying to figure out the identity of it. It's kind of what I, in a way, go through right now with Natty State Sports. It's just part of the business. It's not easy. You got to find your way. You got to try things and see what works, see what doesn't work, and then go from there. That's how it goes. But I'll never forget that it was always pretty solid. But when we got on YouTube, I think it was back in 2021, like the turn of the year of 2020 or 2022, maybe. Late 2021, early 2022. When we got on video on YouTube, that really changed a lot. That changed everything. And it blew up not only my podcast, but the entire Locked On Podcast Network that was constantly growing. We have 400 plus podcasts, I believe. Every NBA team, every NFL team, NHL teams, college sports. We got, I think, most of the Power 5, if not all the Power 5 represented, as well as some other ones. So that was just like incredible to see the growth of it. And then we blew up and we got bought out by a company called Tegna, who owns it now. And I know I'm probably boring you with all of it, but the point is that, it goes back to showing and something I always say, because I mean it, but also remind myself how lucky I am. I'm lucky to be able to do this. Talk about the Razorbacks with you every day and make a living in it. I am so blessed for that and thankful for it. And I'm thankful for David Locke and then the entire Locked On Podcast Network for entrusting me in this. We're close to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's insane. And year after year, this podcast has been the #1 Razorback podcast. Now, people are going to try to stretch their own analytics in it, but when it comes to downloads and listens and watches and everything, nothing compares. And so I'm just very thankful, and I'm thankful for all of you. Thank you for always listening or watching I know sometimes it's been hard to be, I may only have 3 or 4 podcasts a week. I'm trying to do 5, and sometimes it's tough, but you guys have always been very patient. You've been very kind, and you've been very supportive of me. And I cannot thank you all enough. This has been awesome. 1,000 episodes. Who would have guessed? And how far it's come. And the way that the dynamic has changed. And I really realized, and I'll end on this. I really realized the power of this podcast. Where I did radio. I've done sports talk radio. Did sports talk radio for almost 10 years. Had my own show. I worked on almost every sports talk radio station in Arkansas and was very thankful to do all that. But the past 4 to 5 years, I'd say, maybe less than that, we'll say the last 3 years, when I've gone out and I've gone to events or if people have seen me or anything, just come talk to me, the craziest thing is that, and it's when I started to realize the power of it, is that everybody always came up to me about my podcast. Not my radio show, although if they listen to my radio show. I mean, ratings were always solid, I would think, as much as you can track that. But everybody always just came up to me about my podcast. And that was pretty cool. So thank you again, all of you, for being a part of it. We're going to continue it on. I'm thankful to be here. I ain't going anywhere. And we've had some really good times. Let's have some more good times, shall we? Appreciate all of you listening in, watching in, and subscribing to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.